My father, Marc Rabinowitz, was the son of Maxine and Louis Rabinowitz. Louis owned a meat shop, and Grandma was a homemaker piano teacher. Marc was Stuart's older brother and Leonard's twin brother. Marc grew up on Beechwood Boulevard in Squirrel Hill, the Jewish neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and grew up in an Orthodox synagogue. Marc and his brothers were big Pittsburgh Steeler and Pirate fans, attending games at Forbes Field and making money selling souvenirs to fans at the games. He grew up playing at Lincoln Hills Country Club and usually dominating Lenny and Stu at golf. Dad and Stu would always tease Lenny about his short game, especially his putting and chipping. He enjoyed listening to his favorite bands from the 50s and 60s, especially the Beach Boys, Dion and the Belmonts. I always remember my dad listening to WMGI in the car, the oldie station in Cleveland. My father attended Taylor Alderdice High School and graduated in 1967. In high school, Dad played the sax in the marching band and was a great golfer on the golf team. After high school, my dad and Leonard took a road trip from Pittsburgh all the way across the country out to Los Angeles. Then my dad and Lenny played Pebble Beach Golf Course before it was made famous by hosting tournaments. Later, my dad attended the University of Pittsburgh, eventually receiving a degree in mathematics, and continued playing in the marching band and competing on the school golf team. My dad was a scratch or near scratch golfer with a low handicap. After graduating Pitt, my dad worked for a whitewater rafting company at Ohio Pile as an accountant. Later, he got a job with the state of Iowa as a sales tax auditor, auditing companies in Midwestern states near Ohio that did business in Iowa and making sure they paid sales tax. At this point in his life, he met his first wife, Joanne Kaplan, who he met playing bridge. Though his marriage didn't work out, he moved on to the next chapter of his life. In 1981, my dad met my mom at the Pittsburgh ACBL Regional, a card tournament. They dated at bridge tournaments and traveled extensively. In 1984, my mom and dad traveled to exotic Japan, and afterwards they were delighted to become parents to their firstborn son, my brother David. Though he had a lot of medical abnormalities, having a son brought joy and enrichment into their life. Later, in 1987, I was born, a second son who brought even more joy into their life. Growing up in suburban Ohio was nice. Mom and dad would play bridge and golf. Mom and dad would play bridge at home and at tournaments. Dad would play golf abroad and at his home club, Lake Forest Country Club. I never beat Dad at a round of golf, but part of that is I'm just not that great of a golfer. And the other part of that is how straight my dad hit the ball and his excellent short game. Mom and Dad would take trips to California, Cancun, Mexico, and London. We would go visit my dad's mom, Grandma, in Miami, either on spring break or winter break or Thanksgiving once a year. I always enjoyed going swimming and having fun making sandcastles on the beach, or seeing how far I could endure the ocean waves at Grandma's condo. And then, on another school break, we would visit my other grandma in Tampa, Orlando area, and we often took trips to some amazing theme parks. During the 90s, we had Sunday school at Temple Beth Shalom and Hebrew school on Thursdays. I remember celebrating high holidays and Passover with the Rosenbaums and driving to Beechwood, Ohio. I always remember saying prayers at Hanukkah, lighting candles, dominating at dreidel, eating the little chocolates, and trying to see how fast and how long I could make the dreidel spin. Sometimes I would spin 5 dreidels at a time and watch them crash into each other. And my favorite part of Hanukkah, presents. I always remember my mom and grandma making latkes and matzo ball soup, watching dad and grandma play bridge at home and in regional tournaments. I remember getting teased about rooting for my inferior, never winning the championship, loser, cursed Cleveland sports teams, compared to the great, almighty, going all the way, championship winning Pittsburgh teams. Anyway, middle school and high school were very similar to my childhood, except one thing. My parents separated in 1999. We still took lots of trips to Florida to visit my grandma, but we never went back to Tampa, Orlando because my other grandma on my mom's side moved back to Pittsburgh. Also, Dad left his job at Iowa and worked at some local tax jobs in Northeast Ohio. After high school, my dad moved to Florida to help my grandma, whose health was declining, and took a job as a math teacher at a Miami alternative public high school. And then in 2009, Grandma died, and Dad semi retired as a bridge instructor and professional card player. He also became a snowbird, alternating between Ohio and Florida. He moved to Palm Beach Gardens, which has two things my dad loves: lots of bridge clubs to play cards and great golf courses. During the 2010s, Dad took a trip to Israel and saw Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and the Western Wall. He also traveled and played many great golf courses around the nation. In 2014, my dad's health started declining and he couldn't play golf anymore. But he played bridge and enjoyed watching the PGA until he died last week. On the day he died, he actually played bridge online with one of his longtime bridge partners, Marty Weinberg, in Florida. He always found ways to do the things he loved while getting the most out of life. The greatest thing my dad taught me was how to have sharp analytical skills. My dad, having a degree in math, had a certain way of looking at analytics and numbers. He could do some crazy arithmetic stuff without needing a calculator. He was a great navigator in the car before GPS was on our cell phones and almost never made a wrong turn. He could almost always remember what cards were played and what cards were left in your hand when playing bridge. He was loyal, smart, philanthropic, generous, and was constantly helping with other people with various problems. I will miss my dad, and I was lucky to have him as a father. Thank you for listening.